So, hi, Lars. Thank you so much for joining us on the Next in Line podcast. We're very excited to have you on as our next guest here. And, before we get into everything that we're going to talk about today, I just want you to share a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, and the journey that you've been on so far in your career.
Sure. And first of all, thank you for the invite. It's always good to have a podcast with someone from the other side of the planet, or at least on the other side of the pond. Yeah, my name is Lars Silberbauer. I'm Danish, but have lived the last many years outside Denmark. Lived in New York, lived in LA partly, lived in Singapore, Shanghai, London,
Wow.
and now in between London and Switzerland. I've been very fortunate to work for a lot of different brands. I worked for Lego for almost a decade. I worked for MTV, also worked for the IOC, so the Olympic Committee, or the Olympics, as we like to call it. And now I'm actually like an advisor for Goldman Sachs and have two startups or two companies on the side that I founded. So fairly busy, and then also been very privileged to do very different things, from toys to sports to finance, and yeah, really excited to now be heading up a couple new companies, but also still get my head into a lot of companies with the Goldman Sachs job I have.
That's amazing. What an incredible background. I mean, you've been all over the world, all different industries, big brands, and now an entrepreneurship journey. I want you to kind of define some of the moments that shape the way you think about marketing, leadership, and transformation, even within these spaces that you've been a part of.
It's a really good question, because it is always good to look, not that I'm writing my memoirs yet, I still hope I have a few more years in my career, but you never know what the transformational moments are when they're there. You can only realize them later on. But I would say, of course, having been through quite a few different industries and seeing the disruption and the change that is happening all across the world in all industries, but seeing that how that impacts consumers, companies, technology at every different level, and like all consumers everywhere, at all companies everywhere. To me, that's one of the big things that I can see from industry to industry, that's really something that is generic or something that's impacting us more. And I think the whole notion about, and a good old quote about, like, the only constant is the increasing pace of change. I think that is more true now than ever. And I think that's what we see, and that's also like how I set up my career, how I set up my life. It's really being ready for change, but also the opportunities that comes with disruptive change. And again, like, I think that's also where I would advise everyone to actually really, like, just jump into it and embrace change instead of seeing it as a threat. Long answer, sorry.
No, don't worry at all. I mean, I think that, I completely agree when it comes to, if you don't adapt and pivot to the change, then you're going to be left behind, right? I think that's just with everything in life, regardless if that's career, anything it is, like, you have to continue going and leveling up if you want to get somewhere, right? So I couldn't agree more. And I know that in our past conversations, you talked a lot about how businesses and brands kind of need to adapt to a world that's changing faster than ever. You kind of just hit on this mark now. What do you think are some of the biggest forces that are kind of shaping the change right now in the industry, whether it's technology, culture, or consumer behavior, especially from a marketing perspective?
Well, I think we're all aware of, like, the bigger things, like the AI, the
Yeah.
disruption, the wars that's been happening and is still happening, unfortunately, in different parts of the world. I think that's also really something that is really impacting everyone, is impacting consumers, and again, it's impacting everyone so, like, immediately. So one day there's a big opportunity, a big window open, and the next day that's shut. We have all the basic things that are happening right now, but I also think that the mindset that needs to change and that we need to really be leading is a mindset of really just accepting that it is how it is, and we need to live with that amount of change, but also realize that as human beings, like, even though, like, how smart we might be, we're not made for this amount of change. Like, we're made for basically sitting in a cave. The sun will rise, like, next morning. We'll find food in the same places as we did the day before or the year before. Pretty much everything is static, and that's how the human brain has been created through evolution. And the amount of change we see right now with AI, for instance, it's not something that we are designed to handle. So I think we need to overcome that challenge. We actually need to understand that we have a mental constraint in how we think and how that stresses us. How we sometimes, and like, from a psychologist called Leon Festinger, that I really appreciate his point of view on this one, that the human mind is actually able to lie to itself to create inner peace and then accept external disorder or confusion or chaos. And I think that's something we need to really accept, that it doesn't feel good. If we feel good, that's because we're probably lying to ourselves about the amount of change that we have to handle and the complexity we have to handle. So that's what I try to do. Like just accept that sometimes it is very stressful and it's very confusing, and we're not designed to be in a world of constant change. So that's my point of view. And also like sometimes we need to just forgive ourselves that it's we don't need to be up to speed on every single thing every single day, because that's too stressful. But we need to just accept that we will get stressed and we will not be able to overcome everything, and then we can actually try to do it the best way possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you're slowly chipping at it daily instead of looking at it like from this bigger viewpoint and saying, okay, I need to try to, know everything and keep up with everything. And, as long as you kind of feed the mind, like you're saying, in smaller
Mm.
snippets, I feel like that's also very helpful because, like you said, like as humans, we have that, I guess, mental constraint that you were talking about. I like that perspective.
Yeah, and it's just like if you just look at the amount of just if you just look at AI, the amount of updates that are coming
Oh,
daily from Anthropic, from OpenAI,
yeah.
from Gemini, from all the others. If we need to keep up with that and rebuild our entire AI architecture every day, it's going to be impossible to get things done. So
Yeah.
so I think it's really important to focus and to simplify things, and then find out how you can take advantage of the things that you want to control, and yeah, again, control what you can control, and don't really get lost in the confusion and the complexity of everything that's changing at the same time.
That's very true, yeah. And I know that one of your ideas that stood out to me the most throughout our conversations too is how treating yourself like your own company, almost like you're the CEO of your own career, which that really stuck with me because I really relate to that. What does that mindset kind of look like in practice for professionals today or even for yourself?
Well, I would say it's like unfortunate because I have a career with multiple different companies, so I
Yeah.
can be that. But also when I was really just working for one company, and I still think it's important to consider yourself you incorporated or your own company, because it's so easy to get lost in a corporate world that will always push you to spend more hours, to fight for the next ladder step, and so on, so on. But you need to sometimes step out of it and figure out like what's important to you, what's not important to the company, but what actually like what makes you happy in that broader sense of quality of life. Is just work, or how do you want to deal with it? And then when you know like, okay, I want to get to that next level in the company, or I want to like flow into another industry or whatever, then you need to put your resources in a way they also allocate time, not just to do your job, because it's of course very important to do your job, but also to promote yourself internally, externally, to do your own
Yeah.
PR plan for how to actually do that, to make sure that you communicate the successes that you're creating, to make sure that everyone knows it. And I've seen a lot of people, and I probably like was that person in the beginning of my career who was just sitting on my chair and at my desk and doing great work, and then hoping that someone at some point would realize that. It's just like point to me and see like, oh, this guy is right. He's done amazingly. Let's promote him right away. But
Yeah.
that's not how a company works. You really need to push and you need to make sure that people pay attention to you. And if you do great stuff, make sure that people externally, internally, they're aware of it. And then really promote yourself as if you are a product or a company, and use the skills that you have as a marketeer to actually really put yourself forward. Not saying that you'd have like you spend too much time on just self promotion, but really
Yeah.
that you need to have some quality work being done, and then make sure that people see it. And yeah, I think a lot of people are missing that part of the career.
That's very true. I think it's also like, from coming because I'm very entrepreneurial, I have my own business. I've always grown up in that way. I see it in the light of like, okay, it's almost like you have to have that type of, I guess, entrepreneurial instinct or, push yourself to be in that way, especially if you're in corporate, because that's how you're going to stand out. I feel like that's how you're going to really make an impact and the problems that you're going to be able to solve. And the fact that people can see that is what's going to help professionals probably also move up the ladder faster, especially in that side of work, like that corporate side.
Exactly. And also, and that's where disruption is a good thing, right? Because if this was 30 years ago, a lot of the big companies like IBMs of the world,
Hmm.
you would have to work your way up from the bottom.
Yeah.
But right now, disruption is happening, disrupting all the big companies. So if you actually see your moment, if you see opportunity, if you work hard, and if you take the chances, like small companies are able to outcompete the bigger ones. And we've seen that again and again and again. And I think that's
That's true.
also like true career-wise, that if you're a person who are able to teach yourself new things, if you're quite independent, and if you work a lot and work hard and smart, then you're able to really like jump a lot of just jump the ladder, or you really like jump into different positions, and use that disruption. Like I grew up in North Denmark. Like it was not given that I would be sitting at MTV on Times Square at some point. Like it was not really
Yeah,
like
that's
in the cards.
crazy.
So I think that's where if young people growing up in companies right now, there's a lot of opportunities, but it's really important to take the risks, take the opportunities, and then really go for it. There's more opportunities now than ever, but also if you just sit still and don't really like are proactive on things, I think you have a big risk of being made redundant or being part of the next AI redundancy optimization that's been coming up in the companies.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that you've also spoken about how marketers need to get better at communicating the value of marketing to leadership, especially CFOs and CEOs who care a lot about ROI, right? So, growth and also that business impact, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, they think marketing is not working towards that. And we kind of get shied away when that's the first thing that's kind of happening in a business. So what does that mindset kind of look like in practice? And how do you think that gap can kind of exist in today's world of marketing?
I think it exists in quite a few areas in a company or in companies as such. I think it definitely, and I've also been part of the problem at some point. I think we have our own like systems of value systems that we create in every like area of competency in the world or in a company, for instance. And in marketing, like we love giving ourselves awards, and that's great. Like it's great. And I've been on the receiving end of quite a few awards, but also had the misconception that would mean a lot to the CEO. Didn't really, like, honestly, it didn't
Yeah.
really mean a lot. It was like, unless it really meant bottom line or like top line or bottom line, it was just like marketing doing some off-site activities. Of course, you at some point, like you can get so much exposure that actually will mean something on the bottom line. But my point is, it's great. Like within marketing, we can impress each other with our awards and so on. We can have a language about like share of voice or brand impressions or whatnot, social media engagement. But we need to translate that. It's really to get a seat at the big table and to make the big decisions and not to be seen as very expensive circus clowns. We
Yeah.
need to translate what we do into financial terms that are able to be understood by others. And again, it's sometimes the fact that when you use, as again, like if promoting yourself inside a company, as I mentioned before, we are very good as marketeers often to translate the values of a product or a pen or whatever into what a consumer can understand. But we are less competent in translating what we do as marketeers into a language that can be understood by the C-suite.
Yeah.
So that's really where I think it's important that we really get our eyes open to the fact that there's another way of thinking and another way of wording things, that it needs to be picked up by marketers before they can make the next step and really talk into the corporate agenda. And that's like, again, no one is going to be impressed about the share of voice. They want to understand, what does it mean to our pricing power? What does it mean to our valuation of the company? What does it mean to the churn of employees and so on? That's how we actually value a brand. It's not about like the brand impressions or the share of voice or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you kind of advise people to, especially marketers, like bridge that gap and kind of get to that point to be able to communicate that easily to the C-suite or easily to the people that they need to report to?
Get some friends in finance, have a chat with them, buy them some champagne and ask them to listen to you for a while and ask you the really tough questions. And
Yeah.
it's not like I'm saying like that their reality is the only reality that matters, but it's a very important reality if you really want to like make a company come together. You need to be the voice of the consumer. You need to bring that perspective, but you need to translate that into a financial language that can be understood by the board and by the management directors.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that, a lot of people are also like, okay, like I don't, you know, that could be a little bit intimidating in someone's early on in the career thinking, okay, if I want to get to the CMO seat, am I going to have to understand, finance? Am I going to have to understand the sales cycle? Am I going to have to understand X, Y, all the business things that you need
Yeah.
to know, right? And it
And
truly
the
is.
short answer is yes,
Yes.
very much.
I know.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy because, you would never think that until you're fully in it. And I think that once you're fully in it, it's like, ends up becoming a lot easier once you really understand the business impact that you're making as a marketer.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes those conversations a lot easier. I've always been fortunate to and also worked on really creating a strong collaboration with the sales teams and the CFO and so on, because that's also where you really can learn a lot as a marketer. You really can understand, yes, marketing is not just about building brand. It might be sometimes about optimizing, like cost
Yeah.
optimization to increase the value of a company for before an acquisition or whatever. It might be sometimes about really building long-term branding, or it might be really creating a growth engine in the sales departments. So unless you understand that, then you're just a one-trick pony. And the
Yeah,
rewards, it's great, it's fun, it's good stuff, but it's not going to really build a long-term career.
absolutely. And I know that you are also involved in your startups that you mentioned earlier, in the podcast and focus on highlighting content created by humans rather than AI. What inspired that idea and why do you think that distinction will matter with brands moving forward, especially in this whole AI era that we're in?
I co-founded a company called The Story Lens together with two co-founders. And again, it's created because we could see that there was a increasing need in the market for real content and for realness, a real product. We see a tendency and a trend where everyone can create everything. So basically right now, like with the right tools, you can create very, very high production quality ads or high production quality, whatever it is. And that means that everyone can create like everything at
Mhm.
a very, very like high quality. That means also that the trust that consumers have in brands are just declining in the communication, the
Mhm.
brand communication, because you can't see if it's AI or not. And that means you're really losing trust in the branding power of companies. So we can see that across like both communication, we can see it about literature. Like right now, for instance, Amazon, they put a constraint on people uploading books to Amazon. So AI generated books or whatever books, you can only upload 3 books per day now as a user, but three
Yeah.
books per day per user. That's a lot of books. So it means like we're really going to have like an incredible big long tail where no one knows what's real, what's been created by people, what's been created by AI. And again, I'm not saying that AI created content is not cannot be valuable. It's more about like what will be the references in the future in 100 years from now. Will that be an AI created piece of content or will that be like a human created? We believe that there is a value in putting a stamp on things saying like it's created by humans for humans. So we developed some technology and some social technology that's basically put together in a new way that hasn't been seen before. That is basically being put on, can be put on content, can be put on books, be put on music, where you
Wow.
then will guarantee the consumer that this is actually created by humans for humans with control in the production chain, but also it'll be protected in that shape it's now in for eternity. And we've seen a massive interest for what we've started, and we launched in London in November, and it's
Wow.
basically just been taken off since then. So very excited about suddenly you have the ability of creating something that is premium in a world where everything is actually perfectly AI generated, and then that's the dynamic that we're working with, and also the scarcity that we're trying to monetize. Because in a world where everyone can create everything, how do you create scarcity? And you do that by actually making something like real again.
Yeah.
So that's one of the companies that I'm working on, and we're launching some new stuff quite soon. So and I work with some great brands, and unfortunately I can't mention, but we're very soon will be able to the next steps.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. That sounds like I love the created for humans by humans. And I think that's also very, very powerful in the stage that we're in today. And I can't wait to see everything that unfolds for you there because it sounds truly amazing.
Well, we hope so. And one of the fun facts is like the people's ability to or the conversion rates on average are dropping 14% in online commerce or
Hmm.
e-commerce if
Hmm.
people expect that there's been used AI. So just that lack of trust is really incredible. Like 14%, that's a lot if you're sitting there doing an e-com store.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that, you were able to find it's all about like I feel like when it comes to entrepreneurship and creating a business, you find a gap, you find a problem, you're going to create a solution for it. And right now, this company that you're talking about that you started is kind of that gap. It's filling that gap for what's one of the issues today when it comes to AI and the things that, you know, people are always relying on this technology now. You want everything to be real. So you want to be able to be unique and push forward. And the
Mm.
fact that you're already working with brands like I'm sure amazing ones that are soon going to be you're going to be able to talk about is truly amazing.
Thank you. Like it's exciting when every time there's a disruption, a new thing coming up, it always
Yeah,
gives you like there's a window, but the windows are very like they only exist for a very short time, and then
exactly.
yeah.
And you just gotta either take that opportunity and run with it, or keep pushing it forward until you kind of niche it
Yeah,
down. So that's the
yeah.
part I love. I love
Yeah,
entrepreneurship.
I would say some years ago I had an idea and we were like starting up on a company that when drones started to really be happening, and we wanted
Yeah.
to start a company that it was called Clear Sky, basically to keep the sky clear of drones. Today I'm very sad about like we didn't go for it because no one believed in it. But today, yes, that's really big thing right
Yeah,
now.
that is huge. And now as we kind of wrap up this podcast today, I want to think back. I want you to think back to the start of your career, right? So what advice would you give your younger self and to the next generation of marketers trying to build meaningful careers in such a rapidly changing world?
I would say go get those awards, but then at some point, just like when you have three, just like move on.
Yeah.
I would say that's one thing. Then I would say what I just mentioned earlier about really taking the big opportunities, like go for it. When you see what I call the early signals
Hmm.
before it's in a report, before all the old guys in the podcast are talking about it, go for it. Like if you feel it, then go for it. But also understand what it takes to take an idea from an idea to execution.
Yeah.
Because if you put like 5 average intelligent people into a room, they will come out with a ton of ideas. And again, like now with AI, you can just basically analyze the market, come up with ideas. But then to take that into execution, that's of course, that is the very, very hard part. And then to insist on executing faster and better than others, that is going to be, I think that's where you have scarcity. And that's actually where there's going to be a lot of opportunities, because ideas are now like quite free and quite abundant. But it's like, how do you actually dedicate yourself to the right thing and then really insist and make that through? That's the where you really need to pull through. And I would say the last one, I think it's really important to enjoy things. If you don't enjoy it, you're not gonna insist on doing it. You're not gonna continue doing the long hours, the long nights, and the non-existing weekends.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I would say the final thing, and I've benefited from a lot, and what I'm also looking at from a business point of view, again, that is realness. Like there's something you can't do by AI. You can't create an AI generated meal. You can't like write experience at a concert. Like skip your phone, don't record it, just be there. Travel, for God's sakes, travel as much as possible, because that's not something an AI can do for you. You can get
Yeah.
all the reports, you can get all the AI generated videos, but you can't get the smell of, or the non-existing smell of going or sailing into Antarctica and meeting the ice for the first time and realizing there's no smell in Antarctica besides penguin poo and the whale breath. There's nothing that's smelling. So like those things are not AI generated. So I think
Yeah.
a new business, new industry about like experiences will pop up. Yeah, just go travel. It's really like one of the things that taught me the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so, so much for all of the advice, all the wisdom today. I truly learned so, so much. I appreciate you saying yes to this, honestly. So thank you.
Anytime, Karina. Thank you and good luck.